And welcome back to another exciting episode of The Careful Boys featuring Lieutenant Aram Choe, y'all.
Oh!
We call you Chief here, you know.
Yeah, Chief.
Chief Choe.
Wait, are you just one rank below Chief?
Two.
Oh, two. What would be in between?
He's skipping it.
Captain.
Oh, Captain.
He's just going right past.
Captain is cool
El
too.
Capitan.
No, you can't skip that.
I like Captain. It makes me feel like a Navy guy.
Like Captain Crunch.
I think once you get to captain and chief, man, you really it's a different job. Yeah, you're definitely an admin guy. And you know, honestly, the jump from me to from my rank to captain is like a 15% pay raise, and you know, man, is it worth it to just sit behind a desk and crunch numbers and type and?
You don't want to be Captain Crunch.
I mean, at this point in my career, I still have a lot of years left. I don't know, and even the promoting to lieutenant's been great. You know, financially and professionally, it's been great. But there's a part of me still that I feel like I still have a lot of patrol left in me.
Oh.
And like I do miss it when I hear stuff on the radio. Like, man, I want to be out there. But that's you ask any lieutenant, anybody that promotes, they'll tell you the same thing. Yeah, a little bit of me still wants to be there, but somebody has to do the job. And you know, I think I'm at that position now where it's like, do I want the guy that doesn't want to be and always strive to be an admin guy, or do I want to be a guy that's still has it in, still has that zeal, but is in this position because it's a position of responsibility?
But what if your family's like, it's like, you're getting old, I want you behind the desk, it's more safe, it's too dangerous out there.
Yeah, it's funny. My some wives are like that, and then we had a lateral applicant that we were really high on that was going to come to our agency, and then we had a shooting in 2022 where we lost 2 officers. Wow. And she pulled her application back because her daughter told her, please don't go to that department. Right?
But then statistically, though, if it just happened, it's actually kind of safer because it's probably not going to happen again anytime soon.
With the numbers on.
Yeah.
It's like betting on 0-0.
Yeah, come on, dude.
No way it's gonna happen again.
Actually, you hear about agencies, every agency, it happens, right? It doesn't matter if it's a busy agency or slow agency. But yeah, my wife, she's never had that talk with me. She's always kind of trusted me to navigate my profession. And if I did have a question, I would ask her, how do you feel about me going to this? So the last time I asked for her input was actually the third time I went to detectives. I was going back to detectives as a sergeant. They offered me that position, and I remember the first couple times, it was the roughest times of my marriage anytime I was in detectives.
Is it because you're so...
Yeah, and the phone never stops. You know, you have to be really picky on when you leave town, on vacations and stuff, and you know... waking up at 1 a.m, hey, this is what we got. Okay, you know. And as a sergeant, it even amplifies even more.
Chief again.
And,
Chief Johnson.
You're always tired, and when you go to bed, you don't, it's patrol. You're done, right? You're done. Maybe occasionally, like, I wonder how that family is. But when you go to bed as a detective, it's like, okay, what could I have done on this case tomorrow morning when I show up to work? And you're always working cases, and it's never one case. At my department, the average caseload for a detective is 300 cases, right?
300? What? God.
So not all of them are like super involved. Some of them are like whodunits, and they're in this caseload. They're just waiting for evidence to come in.
Don't you ever just completely forget that you had a case?
So luckily nowadays, because we have computers, we have a case management system. So there's and then that's why we have a succession of supervisors too. We have a corporal, 2 sergeants.
I have hella tabs open on you.
Yeah. It's
Dude, literally.
that's why detectives are always at work. It's never 9 to 5, right? You're there early, you're there late, and then like, oh, I'm finally catching up. Cool, you got another case. It just never stops. And we're lucky that our chief knows that our detective bureau is important and fully staffs it. But like in neighboring cities, you have 2 detectives for the whole department and stuff like that. It's like, whoa, how do you?
And I bet like the cases, they're urgent because as you're collecting evidence, like it could be getting away from you if you're not working at a certain speed.
Because you might have a case that was stagnant.
Yeah.
You're like, okay, put this to the side, and a new tip comes in. I need to work that down.
Jump on it.
So
fuck.
I actually wanted to ask a question regarding cases. Do you have like a case that like, out of everything that you've ever worked or experienced, like it still somehow sits rent-free in the back of your head, whether it was a successful one, a great one, or just something that like that was just the one for you?
Yeah, I mean, I have my share of cases I was happy with. I shared the one with the homicide, the son admitting to it 10 years later. That's always been a highlight of mine. But the most impactful ones are the ones that deal with children.
Jeez.
Not always a happy outcome. Usually by the time they call us anyway, it's never for a good thing. But, having seen child autopsies, children that were abused, super impactful in the not a positive way. But it definitely leaves an impression on you. We had I forget how old she was. I want to say she was prepubescent, so maybe 11 or 12 years old, in a really bad abuse case, to the point where she knew how to cook heroin, load it into a syringe, and put it between the webbing of her hands because she's seen it so many times at that age.
So she was doing it?
No, but she could show you how to do it. She would just describe in detail. And then that same girl, we took her to the station to interview her. We had her 2 younger siblings, and we got them all food. And she took one bite of her food, opened the milk carton, drank it, drank a sip, and then gave the rest to her siblings. They're like, why? We have plenty of food. And she's like, oh, okay. Because she was used to that, because she was looking out for her siblings. She was
Rationing, like, immediately?
Yes, she was the mom, because the mom was a prostitute and a drug fiend.
Oof.
And she was prostituting out her daughter.
At 11?
11. Yeah, so it was, I was a field supervisor for that one, and then my chief now was the lead detective on that case, but that was one that we still talk about. So he could write a book about that one.
How do you I guess I'm sure there's tons of PTSD, but how do you deal with it, or is there some sort of protocol that cops go, or debriefing?
Yeah, I mean, so there is PTSD, but there's a new description of it now. I forget what it's called, but it's occupation stress disorder, right? It's just cumulative, that it's not one particular trauma that caused the PTSD, but it's occupational stress disorder. It's just a succession of things that build up and build up and build up. And I said it before the last time I was here, if I didn't have faith, I don't know where I would be right now, because in addition to the trauma I saw on my job, I additionally had personal traumatic incidents. I tragically lost both my parents in traumatic ways, and both times, if I didn't have God to lean on, and still to this day, God to lean on, and then the motivation to bring other people to experience what I've experienced through God, then I don't know where I would be right now. Maybe I wouldn't be a cop today, functioning, professionally.
Did you find God through the work, or
no,
in that time, or
no? I've always I grew up going to a Korean Presbyterian church, but I wouldn't say I was by definition a Christian at that point. It was just something that was part of the pattern that my family did. I had to go to church on Sundays. And I don't think it was till later on when I was a teenager that I was doing stupid things as a teenager and feeling remorseful for it. And then my youth group leader was like, hey, that all that guilt sitting on your shoulders and in your chest right now can go away right now if all you have to do is accept Christ into your life. I was like, that's all I have to do? Yeah, all you have to do is say that you believe Christ is the Lord and Savior and died for all of our sins. I'm like, what about the sins I'm going to commit tomorrow? And he said, when he died on that cross, he died for all of our sins, and all you have to do is profess that he is the one true God, Lord and Savior. Like, that's easy? And I did, and immediately felt like the burden is off of me. No matter what I did up until that point, God still loves me. My parents love me, and even though I'm always going to commit sins and do something stupid, I can pray to not do those things. I can try to always strive to be a better person, but that if I do stumble, my spot in heaven's already been secured.
And seeing the things that you've seen strengthened that faith versus question it from time to time?
Kind of weird to say that, right? I know you wanted to talk about what happened to my mother. I don't know if this is a good time right now.
Whatever's comfortable for you.
But it applies to this. So my mom was murdered in Oceanside, and I received a call at 1 a.m, and Oceanside's far away. So headed down there, and I'm in cop mode at that moment, right? So I'm thinking, I'm trying to rationalize what happened instead of being the emotional nutcase that eventually I became. But my mom and dad divorced when I was 18, so this was in 2015 when she got killed. So quite several years later, my mom had met this man named Jay, who. My mom was a beautiful person. You can go to my page and find pictures of my mom. She was, I always, every son thinks their mom is beautiful, but I didn't realize how beautiful she was until I became older, and it became very apparent to me she was a beautiful person, not just outside but inside. She was very sweet. She owned a flower shop, and even in high school, like when we had the dances, all my friends went to my mom to get the flowers. So my mom was well loved at school too. And when they divorced, my mom, she would have random guys pursue her, and she was well off. She did really good with money after the divorce, and she saw right through it. People were after her for money. Well, she moves back to San Diego after living on the East Coast for a while, and she meets this guy who was a con artist, and my mom would take a stray dog from the street and rehabilitate it and keep it. She would have 50 dogs if she could. And she felt the same way about people. So this guy, Jay, was very manipulative. And even though my mom saw that he was a con artist and was trying to get after her money, he said that he didn't have a place to stay. And my mom had some real estate, and one of the places was a trailer park at a senior home. And she said, you could stay there. And it was only supposed to be until he got up on his feet in 1 to 2 months, 3 months, and then before you know it, it became a year. And during that time, my mom meets her old golf coach, Peter Hong. He just retired from the senior tour. He had his own tragedy too. He had a hotel and golf course in Georgia or Alabama, I forget, that he ran with his son. And his son was, either 2 of his kids or all of his kids were killed on a wrong-way driver, killed him head on. So he didn't want to have anything to do with that business, sold it, gave the money to his widow, and then moved back to Southern California, where he rekindled a relationship with my mom. And it was the first time my mom had ever met a guy and was like in love, right? Really happy. Like, this guy's not after my money. He has his own money. He's really nice to me, takes me out to places, and he proposed to her on Christmas of 2014 in Palm Springs. And after that happened, she calls me. I'm like, I don't know how I feel about that. I haven't met the guy yet, but I'm glad you're happy, right? By this time, I trusted that she was smart enough to sniff out the con artists and stuff. And so she forgets about Jay. She doesn't care, and she tells Jay, hey, she thinks I'm married and I need to cut off all loose ends with this guy. They come back from Palm Springs on another trip in January 6th. They come home, and she leaves him at his place in Huntington Beach and says, I just have a few things I need to get down in San Diego. You're tired, you drove all day, stay here. I'm just gonna go and come back. What she didn't tell him was she had already made arrangements to go pick up the key from this guy and kick him out. So when she didn't come home, it was in the middle of the night, and Peter was trying to call her, doesn't answer. So he knows I'm a cop up in this area, doesn't know what agency, and calls the LAPD and says, hey, I'm looking for Officer Aram Choe. So, are you sure there's So the smart officer that answers the phone Googles my name and sees an old article associating me with El Monte Police. Calls El Monte Police, and one of my childhood best friends, who was the watch commander at the time, Ben Lowry, who my mom adored and he adored my mom, was the one that took the call. So he took it hard, woke me up at home. Actually, I didn't answer my phone. He called my wife, and she answered her phone, and she wakes me up, and I'm looking at her reaction on the phone. I'm kind of half asleep. I'm like, and I think I said, I'm sorry, Ben, thank you, and I hung up, and I kind of sat up in my bed talking to my wife. I'm like, I think I need to go there right now. And she's like, yeah, let's go.
So at this moment, you didn't know what happened yet? She's just missing?
I kind of put 2 and 2 together. She said, it's a crime scene. This is Detective Johnson, female, I forget her first name. And she's waiting for your phone call.
Oh, so they reached out to your mom's boyfriend at the time?
No, he reached out. He called them because she wasn't answering her phone.
Oh, so
I'm sorry. Yeah, I left that part out. Yeah. So police go and do a location check, and then saw what happened, and then called him. So what happened was, long story short, or long story even longer, but what happened was he agreed to give her the keys, but he never intended on. He also had heard either my mom told him or heard that she got engaged, and in his mind, if he couldn't have her, no one else could. So when she showed up, he assaulted her, kidnapped her, strapped her to a chair inside of the trailer, and it was a double wide. Strapped her in the chair and shot her in the head. And then he tried to kill himself. He went to the bathroom and tried to shoot himself, either flinched or couldn't do it because there was a gunshot through the ceiling in the bathroom. And then eventually did it in the same room that my mom was in. So, you know, so when I got all that, I'm hearing everything and I'm still kind of just in no emotion. It didn't really hit me till my drive home, and then I kind of lost it all. It was the first time my wife actually ever saw me drunk. I didn't know how to deal with it other than start sipping just to calm my nerves, and that sip to calm my nerves turned into sip because I was angry, and a sip because I was sad, and a sip because I wanted to hurt somebody, and then a sip because I wanted to hurt myself. And my wife had to carry me upstairs to bed, and she said, I never want to see that again. I understand you get a hall pass, but it was really scary how destructive you were on that moment. So I felt so bad that my wife had told me that. I never want my wife to see me out of control. I'm the one that's always in control. She leans on me to be the rock. And at that moment, I just fell on my knees and prayed to God that I needed to recover, and I needed some guidance because I was lost at that moment. So yeah, you know, not having the satisfaction of putting this guy away or, you know, doing whatever I would have done irrational at that moment might have been a blessing, because who knows what I would have done. I'm an only child. She's my mom, and after my parents divorced, I stayed with my mom. You know, she was the only involved grandparent when I had kids. It was tough, and that was, I left out the part that just a year prior to that, she was diagnosed with stage 3 ovarian cancer, and she beat it.
Wow.
You know, in her 50s, she beat it, and she has a scar from here down to her pelvic bone from when they had to remove her organs to remove the cancer and stuff. So for a woman who was doubted her entire life, who made a success of herself, got cancer and beat that when everybody told her at her age she wouldn't, to get taken from this world like that, yeah, I felt cheated. I felt like my mom's life was cheated, cut short. And just a couple years prior to that, in 2012, my dad had committed suicide. So yeah, it was a 3-year period where my world was just rocked.
Yeah, that's pretty intense.
I think any one of those individual things would have been enough to break somebody. Yeah. And so I have my testimony today that I went through not only one of those events, 2 of those events, 3 of those events, and I'm still here to tell you today that it's going to be okay. That you're more valuable here to your family, to the people that love you, than you would be self-destructing for no other reason than just to satisfy some carnal needs, some internal needs that was just temporary to begin with.
Yeah. Wow.
Thank you for sharing that.
Yeah, thank you for sharing.
Yeah, and I'm open about it because, you know, it's been 10 years now. Actually, 10 years, January 2015. And it gets better. It's easier every time I open up about it, so it's therapeutic for me. But I also, since I shared my testimony about 7 years ago on YouTube through a shirt company called Dangerous But Good, they heard about my story and wanted to do a feature, and I shared it. I've gotten such a tremendous response from people that said, man, I'm going through this and it pales in comparison to what you're going through, but for me it's just as impactful, and the fact that you were able to overcome it gives me hope. So I don't know how many lives may have been saved by my testimony, or people, just the fact that people are impacted alone gives me the courage to be open about it.
Yeah.
Because I could have just been a recluse and said, I don't talk to anybody.
Internalized it, yeah.
I feel selfish that story was kept inside, because my mom, it's a disservice to my mom's legacy, even my dad's legacy. He wasn't the best dad, he wasn't the best husband, but he did have a meaningful impact to the kind of person I am today. So all those events, negative or positive, has shaped who I am today.
Thank you, man.
Yeah, man. Hey, you're our chief.
Yeah, chief.
That means if you want raises, you ask him then.
Yes, true.